Hello, I'm Tom Palmer, and this is my dog Finn. Say hello, Finn. Hello. Right. Anyway, This is a short film about my book D-Day Dog. I just wanted to tell you basically 10 things about D-Day Dog and why I wrote it and what made me write it. And one of the first reason that I wanted to mention was we got a dog about 2 years ago. We got a dog, and this is Finn. He's a cocker spaniel. I wanted him. I wanted to write a book with my dog in it. Right, you can go now. Thank you, Finn. Anyway, so I wanted to write a book with our dog in it. So I kind of gave, if you look at the first page, my dog to Jack, who's the main character in this book. So that's the first thing that inspired this. And the next thing was I've been writing quite a lot of history books. I like history. And I wrote a book called Armistice Runner and another called Over the Line. And they inspired me to write a book about history and dogs, particularly. So we had a dog. I wanted to write another book about history. So I did some research. I went online and I typed in the words D-Day and dog because I knew the D-Day anniversary was coming up. It was the 75th, look up there, anniversary of D-Day. I've typed that in and this picture came up, and this is Glen, who was a dog during the Second World War, and Emile, who's his handler. And I found out about them, so that was the third reason I wrote this book. So I found out about a real dog, and this dog was particularly interesting because he was a parachuting dog. And if you've read this book, you know that it's about Glen, who was a parachuting dog in the Second World War. So that was the next reason. The next thing I wanted to find out about parachuting dogs in the Second World War, and one of the schools that I worked with invited me on their school trip to where D-Day happened, where the battlefields were, and the beaches, which is in Normandy in northern France. And so I went there. I did some research and found stuff out, and one of the things I did was I went to and found the grave of these two, because you find out quite early in the story that they didn't survive the war, and part of the story relates to their grave. And for me, it was really important to go to their grave because if I'm writing about them, I need to really have a strong feeling for them. And so I went to their grave to pay my respects and also to help me gather ideas for the story, which it did, because their grave features later in the story. The next thing was being on the school trip. There was other things on the school trip. There was the children's reaction to the story of D-Day, which was in the Second World War, when British, American, Canadian forces invaded occupied France to help defeat the Nazis. So the children's reaction to the things we saw, including the grave. The bus driver on our school trip was a really interesting man who used to be a paratrooper. So he helped me a lot. So I'm drawing from real people and thinking of real things that I see real people do and then turning them into a story. But we also went to a museum which is in Portsmouth, which is called the D-Day Museum, where you can find out lots of facts. And if you're writing about a famous battle or part of a history, it's really good to find out your facts. So I went to the D-Day Museum and found out loads of facts. But there were some other things which I found out about, and one of them was really important, because if I'm writing about a dog who is killed in the war, that's kind of difficult, isn't it? Because it's about animals being killed in war, and animals don't deserve to die. Well, not do people, really, in war. And so what I did was I went and visited. You can see this. This is a memorial to all the animals who've been killed in wars. And this is in London. So I went to visit that, and it gave me a strong feeling for whether it was right or wrong for animals to be involved in war. The whole thing, the whole writing of the book really was about Jack is the boy, the main character, and he doesn't know how to feel about war. He's excited by war. He likes war video games. He likes running around with pretend guns when he was younger. And so he's really excited by war, but he knows that war is horrible and horrendous because A, he's found out that Glen and Emile were killed in the war, but also there's a girl in his class who is from Syria, and she's had to escape a war, and things happened to her family which were quite hard for Jack to understand. So for me, it's kind of like sometimes most of the time war is horrible, an awful thing, but sometimes maybe it's necessary, such as D-Day. A lot of people think D-Day was a really important battle to fight because it helped get rid of the Nazis in Germany. So it's all those sort of things about war, and that's that's why I wrote it, really, to sort of try to help me understand what I think about war, and hopefully that might help some of you think more about war as well. And in the back of the book, there's a section on questions about war to make you think about war from different angles, like from a soldier's point of view or an animal's point of view, or different things like that. Anyway, that's my little introduction to D-Day Dog. Thank you very much for listening, and all the best.